Welcome to the energy that surrounds us. I'm your host, Michael, and we are in for quite an adventure tonight. I have an amazing guest. I have been waiting. We actually were talking about this before we got started, 3 months in the making. So we are totally excited to bring you this episode tonight. And I could sit here and share with you her bio, but let's be honest, I can't do it justice. So I am going to hand it off to the one, the only, truly incredible, amazing Devina St Claire.
Oh, thank you. What a sweet introduction. Thank you, Michael.
You're
Um,
welcome.
well, I am honored to be on your show. You're the first person that has had me as a guest. And so it is kind of like a milestone. It's a special evening for me. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'm grateful and appreciative you accepted my request to be a guest.
Well, I, uh, I know that we talked a little bit about the Around the World Tarot, but I really just wanted to share just a little bit of my history for those who don't know, just to kind of get an idea of where I came from and where I drew a lot of my work from. And so I started experiencing the edges of the spiritual world. It happened as a teenager, but the weirdest stuff, all the weirdest stuff that you can imagine happened when I turned 15, which I think now is really ironic because I am into the esoteric and tarot. So the number 15 is the devil card in tarot, right? And that's when all of the spiritual, the first time I saw a ghost, I unfortunately was attacked in the shower by an invisible force when I was 15. And I even had something that now looking back, at the time I didn't really register, but I actually got more information recently, and I feel like it might have been even extraterrestrial when I was 15, where I was almost abducted. Um, but yeah, so I'm like, well, I might want to bring out the devil card at some point, just because for some reason that number is significant. But yeah, so that's where my weird stuff began. And then not knowing, like, what, my family was religious, and you couldn't ask them a question because everything was the devil, whether it really was the devil or not. That's what my mom and everyone blamed everything on, being a religious Christian household that I grew up in. So, but yeah, so I was in the shower and I heard a woman laugh, and right before I got hit so hard on the head that I almost passed out in the shower. And it was with the shampoo bottle. It hit me so hard that I was seeing stars, and my intuitive guidance told me that I need to turn my body around so that I don't inhale and drown and all that. So I did that, and I laid there, and I didn't pass out, but it was pretty freaky. But the freakiest thing about it is that there was an invisible force that had the power to harm me in some form or fashion, because the shampoo bottle wasn't up, it was sitting on the tub. So that was the hardest part of that story, was to put that part together and say, why, how? That sounds impossible. But it happened. And then, I regained my composure. There was no one else in the house. At the same time, when we were in that same house, we were having like a bunch of, like, I don't know what the right term is. I want to say maybe spirit or demonic or something was after, like, it's touching my sister's butt in her bed, and there was like a wolf sound all around me and light splashing. And around that same time, I was dreaming that something lifted me out of the bed, and I'm laying here horizontally, and I'm feeling it. I mean, I'm dreaming. I think I'm dreaming. And all of a sudden I start floating out of the room and I start floating down the hallway, and and it I woke up because I fell. So I was dreaming that I was floating, and it felt really cool. It was a really cool dream. Little did I know that it was really happening, and I couldn't understand because I hit the floor so hard that my air got knocked out of me in the dining room when I woke up on my back flat, and I was disoriented, and I'm like, how the hell did I get here? I was just having a dream that I was floating, and then I'm like, that didn't happen. And you know how it is. It's like things you can't explain, but you don't forget it because it's too weird, right? So now I'm thinking, well, that might have been like some sort of attempted abduction, that because it was almost like I saw a laser or white light, in my dream. I don't know how that would work, but we hear about that kind of stuff, right? And then my son, I have a son that was had some alien, like blue, some kind of UFO thing landed, and they were calling him telepathically, and he got so scared that he ran into the house when he was a kid. So whatever that is, and then my grandfather, they would see big lights in the field. So there's like, I don't know, some families have weird things that happen to them, and I guess I was born into one of those weird families that have spiritual anomalies, or things you can't really explain happen, because it doesn't just happen to one generation, it happens to multiple generations.
That's true, and I can attest to that a little bit as well. And so you're in good company with that one.
Yeah, I'm sure you would know about those things yourself since you're interested in the paranormal.
Yes, and since you mentioned the devil card, I was looking through your deck and actually finally found it.
The
And
Mothman.
the, these are amazing, actually.
Oh, thank you. Well, they were all inspired by different stories and many experiences that I had. And I think it's funny, yeah, the devil card, like I never put it together until today. It was like, well, that's very strange. That's also, so I thought, well, maybe I just need to bring that out. And when I was creating the deck for the Around the World Tarot, really, I wanted to create something that's educational. And so I put 7 interesting facts with every location, and some of the stories for the area to teach people, because I thought about it. I was like, well, this is around the world. Do people in Australia or Africa or in other countries know about, myths that would be like here in America? For instance, West Virginia's Mothman, and the, what is it? I'm having a hard time here thinking about it, but they call him a wood booger. I can't think of it. Bigfoot. Do they know about our myths and our legends? And so I thought it would be really cool to match the esoteric understanding with a location or stories, just for an educational, to teach people about different places in the world. And so the devil, speaking of the devil, I thought, well, wouldn't it be the best, wouldn't it be cool to put, I'm sorry, I have a habit of saying, I'm trying to work on that. I have to cut that out. I edit my videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, how many times did I say that? So I'll try not to say that too many times. But I thought, wouldn't it be so cool, like if we just like taught stories and did, poems. There we go. Now you're going to notice it. But anyway, so the Mothman, and I lived kind of close to West Virginia, and I never really got to see Bigfoot when I was in that area. I kind of thought, well, if it existed, I wanted to see it, but now I don't really want to see that anymore. I'm not that brave, I don't think.
Well, I don't know if it's about brave or not, but we have to look at one, what's the true history of the cryptids and other paranormal entities that are out there. And secondly, is we have to trust ourselves and look within because, like you're saying, you're not wanting to see Bigfoot because, feeling a little scared. Where to me, it's like Bigfoot would never, I don't think, intentionally harm anyone. So fear is the opposite of what I would be thinking. And so I think it's important that, we don't sit there and say, oh, because of these, YouTube videos or these videos that I've seen where Bigfoot did this or Mothman did that, I'm too afraid to see them because one, that footage may not be real. And secondly, is we don't know what that person did to provoke that response. They could have been throwing rocks, for example, and Bigfoot had enough and was like, "Hey, stop!"
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Hey, look, he attacked me."
Mm.
And so that's why I say it's important when dealing with these is to learn who they are and what they're, why they come around,
Yeah.
and to try and make your own and trust yourself because I think a lot of opportunities may be missed because we assume they're going to react one way and they may
Yeah.
react a different way.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I always wanted to see one. For years and years, I was so fascinated by that, the whole cryptid of, well, with the Bigfoot, because the natives would say that it was a real, they had all these stories, and you can go back and read different accounts in history in early America when it was being settled by, there were counts of Bigfoots, and especially in the Cascade region and the West Coast, right? Well, they say it's over here too, and it's all across the world. So I was really fascinated. But what happened was, is recently, now this is, I think I had an experience recently, and it wasn't good. And I don't know if I'm associating that with whatever I saw that I can't explain in the woods, but whatever I saw was watching, and it was huge and tall and black. And it wasn't, my brain almost, you know how, like, when you're not, when you've never seen something before, sometimes you really can't see it. But yet it was in the peripheral, and my dog saw it. So anytime my dog sees something, I'm like, oh shit, it's really there. Well, I was on the back porch, and there was something tall. The whole trees and bushes was going like this, and it was high up off the ground. Um, and I'm looking, and I'm like, and it was like a shadow figure of a black, tall, something black that I can't even describe. Like I said, it might have been a Bigfoot, but it was almost like a spirit, because it vanished, but it was physical because it was moving everything in such a way that I didn't understand. My brain couldn't understand how the trees were doing what they were doing.
Yeah. It
And
sounds
I
like it
heard it
could have been a
grunt.
shadow. Yeah, it sounds like it could have been a shadow being, in which case it wasn't a Bigfoot. But I don't
Yeah,
know. I wasn't there, so
a shadow being. Yeah, it was definitely something. And my dog saw it and was staring and barking. And so I guess that since I had that recently, then that kind of changed me. I'm like, well, maybe I really don't want to see a Bigfoot. Maybe whatever that was enough. Um, but I have been fascinated about, things like that my whole life, probably because of all the weird stuff that started happening early on. It kind of shapes our personalities. We start looking for answers, and to going on a journey that will take us to explore all kinds of concepts and ideas to try to understand our experiences. And yeah, and I don't know, I mean, my son had come in and for a little bit, and he had a lot of issues, and he was bringing in some stuff that wasn't necessarily good energy. And something ripped and shredded one of his hats to pieces and left it in a pile in the yard. And he was telling me, and I was telling him that he told me it was werewolves. And I told him, you're imagining things. I don't want to hear it. I was really upset with him that night. And it happened to be one of the full moons. He said that he heard them and he came to tell me. And I was like, I was kind of upset. I didn't want to talk about it at that time. I wasn't in a good mood. There was some weird stuff going on, very strange. And by the way, my sister had a dream that there was a Bigfoot in my house a month before we started having some weird, bizarre stuff happening here. And so he told me there was dogmen or werewolves outside, and he heard him howling at the moon, and it was the pink full moon, or it was one of those full moons. And then he had left his hat outside, and then I happened to find it. And of course, my daughter crocheted it, so I picked the hat up, and I had like a visual of something black, like a dark, like what I saw, I think, in the woods, to be honest, that spirit creature. And it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good. And I don't think it ripped the hat to shreds because of her. It had to do with his energy. He's the one that brought it, because he was a very open. He didn't have boundaries, and he would say that those beings are a part of him. So he was kind of letting things come in. It wasn't good. And so, so I've had some really, special, magical, spiritual experiences. And, starting when I was 15, I didn't have so many good ones. Being attacked, having those kind of things, that it makes it hard sometimes. You have to integrate it, process it, and sometimes we just don't have all the answers to it. Normally, I'm not scared, though. That's the thing, is normally I'm not scared of anything. But when we got here at this land that I'm on, I took pictures, and there was spirits everywhere. I sent pictures. It was so bizarre. I have them. I wish I would have looked them up. But there was spaces. So sometimes you can capture spirits, and they're like a lighter shade, and you'll see a face. And I had some weird faces, like alien looking beings, faces that were ugly, like gremlin type faces showing up, little ghosts like this tall, wearing a pretty dress in a tree. There was an evil shaman. The evil one is the thing that was here before I got here. And it actually, so I haven't really been talking about what's been going on in my life. I kind of keep all of it quiet. And I don't really know why all of a sudden I want to share this with you, but I'm hoping that someone can learn something from this experience or figure it out, maybe if they've had something similar. So when I got here, something had come in and scraped where I have my altar. And my daughter, we had just moved in, and my daughter and I saw it, and they had just moved the furniture, and it was fine. I had just seen the antique furniture that it didn't have any scrapes. And then I was being attacked, which is another story. Like when you find maggots thrown on your altar that are wiggling and alive, that's some evil demonic shit. So I've had people say, well, nobody's attacking you. That's not true. Nothing like that's true. None of that. Okay, well, so what? I've started, when I was a child, I started getting attacked. And I've been protected. I've been really lucky. I've been very protected as well. So how do you explain that? Like, what is this? Why is it these entities want to come after me? Why? What did I do, right? I'm not playing a victim. I'm not, because I'm not afraid of them. They can't actually hurt me, or they would have, they would have actually hurt me if they were able to. So it was more like a harassment thing. But then I was wondering why, like, what is this that I have to do? And, as a priestess, sometimes we come in and we do clean up a little bit energetically, or priest or priestess. You pray and you send out good vibes, and you do some ceremony, and things like that. So I feel like maybe that, like I'm a cleanup crew type being too, like maybe in a that's what makes sense. It's like going to the underworld. For some reason, I see darkness and yucky stuff, and like the fairy that has to clean it up, kind of like that archetype. I'm not saying I'm a fairy, but there's some sort of weird archetype where the darkness is always something I'm aware of, and yet I have to maintain light among the darkness. Um, if that makes
Well,
sense.
it does, and there is something I probably could share with you that might shed some light on it. And shedding light kind of is like a pun at this point. But one thing that everyone needs to be aware of is as you're doing stuff like, you talking about being a priestess, you're doing light work. Well, you're creating a beacon. And so that light radiates out. It doesn't stay contained in. And so both sides see it. So you're going to get benevolence coming to say, hey, we want to help you. Malevolence coming to say, hey, we want to use you. And that's the difference is one wants to use you, the other wants to aid you. And so if you don't put like protection and shielding around yourself and you just let your energy light just shine out, you're going to attract both sides. So you have to protect yourself as you're doing this, and it is a constant repetition to where it's even gotten to the point to where like I will say I'm doing this work, so I always have this protection on, and then it may be a month and I'll go, hey, this protection's supposed to be automatic. I don't think it's working. Let's reset it, make it automatic, and it just keeps it in. Everything runs by intention.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, my phone battery, I thought it was charging, and so I was gonna, I'm so sorry. Let me turn my light back on. Oh
Oh,
no, I'm having technical difficulties. I'm sorry. Uh, okay, my phone, I have to charge it because, oh my gosh, where did it? I'm sorry. I apologize. I am getting it though. I'm plugging it in right this minute. Okay.
oh no, you're. Oh, there we
Okay.
go.
Can you see me?
I can see you. You're a little bit in the dark though, because I can
I
see the
know my
queue.
light, my computer. Okay, I'm sorry. I unplugged the wrong thing. Well, I cannot see without glasses, and I'm in the dark almost. Oh Lord, I guess. Hold on here. This is crazy. I did not. I've got to find. Okay, all I got to do. It's very simple. I apologize. I'm gonna plug my phone in because I got the message that it's about to be dead. The battery.
All
And
right.
that's when I unplugged my light by accident. So let me get this thing done here. I apologize.
Oh no, you're
Have you
fine.
ever had that happen?
I
Okay.
have actually, where I thought
Yeah.
something was plugged in and it wasn't, and it did die. I was like,
On the
wait.
show, though. Have you ever had that
Um,
on the show?
I haven't done it, but I have had guests be like, "Ooh, wait a minute, hold on," and have to
Uh-huh.
plug stuff in.
Okay. All right. So we're okay. I got it. I got it. I got it. Okay.
There it
Oh.
is. You're
Oh,
back.
but isn't that funny though? We're talking about dark stuff, and then I'm all of a sudden I'm actually in the dark for real.
Oh, I know. I love when
I
those
didn't do that on
synchronicities
purpose for
happen.
effect or anything, though. I promise. It was just, it really was. I forgot to plug my phone in.
No, it happens, and so synchronicities happen. So I've learned as a host, you just roll with it. But
No,
yeah,
that
and so does that make sense to you, or is that helpful to you? What I was mentioning?
yes, the boundaries is important. And what was so wild about it was is that I knew there was something that was dark and malevolent on the property that I we moved to here, because like I said, it attacked me spiritually speaking when it threw something on my altar that just made no sense whatsoever. uh, and that's gross. I mean, maggots, live maggots, that's pretty dark. Something sinister. That's not normal. That's very
Mhm.
strange. And there wasn't even flies in my house, so I know for a fact there were no flies in the house at all. It was one of those things you couldn't explain. So when it showed up in the picture, it was a shamanic looking dark entity though. It wasn't an entity of light. It was a dark, like a native. It had a animal skin over, and you could see it. And I sent the picture to family members, and my son was like, "Whoa, that place is overridden with spirits." Well, then what I ended up doing, like you said, is I ended up creating a cleansing barrier, because I realized at this point I need protection. I don't want this thing in my house anymore. So then I had to go put salt and just do a whole bunch. And like you said, you have to reinforce it sometimes. Um, I don't know why that is, but sometimes we do, especially if we're feeling it coming back, because it does go. I've also learned about dark entities in the past when I was guided to clear out some entities from the attic that had settled into the house for a few years. I know it took me a few years, but they ended up attacking my daughter when she was a baby, and that's a black cloud. There was like a black cloud floating down and she screamed, and I went in the room, and she had blood. They scratched her arm. It was a smoke cloud, a black cloud, and they scratched. I couldn't believe it. I was like, why would a spirit attack a baby? And I got so angry, and um, I yelled out at it, and then I took her arm and I put her under the running water to clean it. And so after that, I had to really pray and get guidance from my higher, guides, shamanistic teachers, whoever it is I work with, and instructions on how to get rid of this thing that showed itself as Voldemort with possum teeth. And it's really interesting because uh, this Voldemort thing. So there was a bunch of them. So this was in Dallas Fort Worth, by the way. We moved into a house that had someone had died, and he came to live back in it. But my one of my sons was a dark magician. I don't want him. Well, I don't want to give any names, but one of my sons was a dark magician in another life, and he willed a picture to life that had a demonic that was bald with Voldemort teeth. So he invited this spirit into our house in Colleyville, Texas, where we lived. And I didn't know what to do, so we ignored it. I mean, we all knew there was something that would come and go in the house. Um, but I didn't know what to do. And so the thing that occurred to me is when they attacked my daughter, I was like, okay, they got to go. So I had to call in, Jesus and all those spirits, the masters and angels to help me work this out to get these things out for good. And so I had this gigantic crystal, and I got the idea to use this crystal because crystals amplify energy. And well, I went through this whole process. This was probably the first time that I've had to encounter demons. And I went through this process. You have to cleanse yourself first. You got to go through a whole prayer. You got to prepare your mind. It's like it was almost like a 24-hour. It was a whole day thing. I didn't take it lightly, a prayer and cleansing stuff. And so I was shown what to do, kind of like, how they command them to leave and stuff like that. Well, I knew where they were. They were up in they came down from like the attic game room area, and they were like several levels up. So I went to address them, and I told them they had to leave. And there was the game room window, and they went out that window, and I heard it growling like an animal. And I had already, like you said, I put up protection and prayed, but I didn't do that for the animals outside. I didn't even occur to me. I was, I'm a novice here trying to learn something new, right? And so I heard at that moment, clairaudiently, they're going after the rabbits. And when I walked away, like I was walking away like a badass, I just got this. There's 3 of them. There was a little, there was like a gnome one. You could see them. There was 3 of them. They would always be peeking around corners and things like that. And they would always avoid me. I would hear them like, oh, she's in there. Or, but like I said, I didn't know what to do with them. So I didn't do anything. I ignored them until it was at the point where, hey, they're hurting my child. Anyway, so they left out that window. But the next morning, the son that I told you was in another life, not necessarily a very good sorcerer, he found the rabbit with his face all twisted, dead, and he's like, "Mom, come out here, you come." So I ran outside, and the one docile, sweet rabbit named George, his face was contorted and twisted in a way that wasn't natural, and there was no sign of a struggle. None of the wires was damaged. No animal could have pulled him. He just didn't look right. It looked like something not natural attacked him. There was no blood, nothing. It's just his face was twisted in an unnatural way, like he was screaming. And oh, so sad. Oh my God, that's traumatic. Anyways, trying to clear that out. But anyway, the memory of it, thinking about it, it was really a sad moment. And then I realized all of that just happened last night was real. I wasn't playing around. That happened. Anyway, so that was my first encounter with dark stuff, and trying to learn how to work with spirits to get them out. Yeah, but it's always something, because you come back and it's like a new level, like you're somewhere else now. You got to learn something else, and but I don't want to do that anymore. I never asked to do that. That's the thing. But it just came, from the time I was 15, the first time I saw that spirit staring at me in a house, and he told me, "I don't want you here." And he was evil. He was an evil one, like his eyes, he was looking at me. So then that traumatized me at 15, the first time I was babysitting some kids. And my mom told me that there was spirits all in that house, because she worked there, and she saw the Santa Claus typing one day by itself. There was nothing there, but the Santa Claus was typing on a typewriter that they had displayed. And she would see a little, like a shadow following the little girl who had a witch doll. And I didn't think about any of my mom's stories until that night. I was babysitting these 2 kids, and I was sitting on the sofa, and all of a sudden I could feel something staring at me, and I'm looking, and I look at their basset hound, and the dog didn't act like anything. And I thought, oh, well, maybe it's just my imagination, because it was the first time I ever saw a spirit in my life. I was 15. And so I went to the kitchen and put a glass down, and I saw this dark face with evil looking eyes, kind of like a cartoon character, what you would see in a cartoon, with the frown and the dark evil eyes in his face. And he looked at me and telepathically said, "I don't want you here." And he did it, and it was like, and I jumped back, and I was like, whoa. And at that moment, it was like this see-through, because I could see the outside light, and he just like a genie in a bottle flew away. So window stuff, like seeing out windows after that for a while, I've healed that now. But at the time, when you don't know what's happening and all these weird things are happening, you have a lot to process. And my mom tried to make it seem like maybe there was something wrong with me, which I knew it wasn't me. Like I said, we don't none of us, anyone who's ever had these experiences, they don't ask for it. I never wanted to be this person, but I have come to know now that perhaps I've had some shamanic lifetimes, memories, and things like that where I've had to do healing and as a medicine person. And the spirit world was kind of like where you're walking in between a bunch of, several worlds. You're able to see these things and you're here as well. And I don't know. You know what I'm talking about.
I do,
You
and I
do.
actually have a few suggestions if you're open to it.
Of course. Tell me more. What do you have?
So the reason, like, they left through the window and they left when you were at the window when you were 15 is you commanded your space, and so they, by law, universal law, have to abide by that. So that's why they left, is you no longer gave them permission to be there. And what happens with that people don't understand is when you command something to leave because you just feel like it doesn't belong, they leave. But the second you have a doubt if they left or a doubt if it worked, you have opened the door for them to come right back. So that's why sometimes they'll repeat. You have to, and I know this is going to sound strange, but when you command your space, you have to command it all the time. So the second, and they're very good about, like, if you say, okay, you have to leave, they will literally listen to what you say. So, like you said, you have to leave this house. You left the outside completely their domain. So, a suggestion to you is in the future, what I do and what my parents do is when we are in a place where we're going to be residing, we set up on the perimeter of the plot line of our land shielding that says only this type energy can enter and cross over this. And then at the door, we have additional of energy that says, hey, you have to be of this level to come through this way. And then above all of our doors, we have another like layer of protection that says, if you're not of this intention, you can't come through. And so it's like they got to go through three different layers. And I actually had to reinforce one of the layers this year. And so it was kind of interesting doing that. But you have to, and the other thing I would say is, sorry, I'm a little tired and not 100%. I think
You're
I'm
fine.
getting a cold, and so my brain is not fully firing on all cylinders. But what I was going to say is you can say protection of the house and the plot line, but we all know we get into vehicles to drive somewhere. So add on there and the vehicles that reside here and the people in those vehicles. And the importance of that is you can drive to the grocery store and something can go in and attach itself to the car because it's left the field.
Not lately.
And if you pick up a friend and your friend is, I'm not meaning in a derogatory way, but a low vibration energy, they're bringing a lot of stuff with them. So as they're in your space, because you invited them in, you also invited who's with them in as well. And so
Yeah.
that's why sometimes people will start to doubt that their shielding and energy shields are working because they'll be like, oh, my shields are up and I should be protected. And since this happened, the shield had to fail. No, the shield didn't fail. You invited it in by that other person.
Ah, yeah.
So that's why it's important, I feel, to say only this energy can enter this vehicle, which then comes into the property. And so it's like double, it's like you're almost cleansing them. And it's like you can even say whatever is affecting them remains outside. And when they leave, they're at choice to reclaim it or not.
Ah,
But
yeah.
it's not allowed in here. And
Yeah.
so intention is 9/10 of the law. And so you got to watch and see, if things are starting to happen, like, if what's going on the property there. A question is, did somebody that's not always there come onto the property, and did you invite them in? Because chances are you might have invited something in you didn't know.
Mm.
And so you got to be mindful and just watch what's happening, to see, so you don't start to question, am I really doing this work? Am I really, doing this, or is it an illusion? Because that's the trick that they play.
Yeah, that's a good, no, that's a good point, that you're bringing that up, because I think a lot of times we do forget our vehicles, and that's really important too, is to make sure your vehicle is protected. And um, you don't have, that's so funny. I have, I recently thought about that. So I put something in my vehicle. So it's interesting that you're bringing that up. Yeah. Well, this thing, what happened is that being back in Texas, uh, laughed at me and told me that sage is temporary and that they come back as soon as they would leave, but they would always come back. And I remember it taunting me and laughing and saying sage doesn't work. And they didn't come back after that day. They were gone. They were gone for good, but they left the mark. They killed a rabbit of mine, my pet, innocent rabbit. But yeah, and that's what you said was what was really good to know. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So thank you about the when you said commanding it to leave, they have to. That's important. I think that we all need a reminder on that one, is that we're the ones that have the right to our space and command them to leave, and they have to. So that's a good point. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Right. And the reason you set a level, like you can say Christ energy and above can enter,
Mm-hmm.
is because if you just say no energy can enter here, that means your loved ones can't come and visit. You have blocked the house from everyone. You've isolated yourself from everything. So if you say, like, you have to be like white light or higher, then
Mm-hmm.
you're allowing family to come in. Any being that's considered white light and above can come in, and you can, even if you want to be more specific, say, benevolent energies are allowed in. But you have to be careful, because the second you start judging energy is when energies can fool you, because it may be, you may be picking up a child and being like, oh, hey, here's a little kid. Yeah, kids are benevolent. Yeah, come on in, kid. Come and talk. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not a kid. And so they can trick you by portraying the image of. So you have to trust and know your senses of, if you sense you're looking at a kid but something's off, it's best to leave it outside. But if you're sensing benevolence and you're sensing a kid, then chances are it's a kid.
Now, are you psychic? Because what you're saying actually happened after that. They tried to come back in his form of a boy. And I had read at that point, I had read, you can ask his spirit 3 times, are you of the light? And they can't lie. They have to tell you, you got 3 times. And so I did that, and it was not, they were trying to come back because they knew that there was a ghost that had lived there named, well, I almost don't want to say, because he was a real person. When he died, he came back into the house that he grew up when he was 12. And it was an accident, but we had just moved in this house, by the way. So he was living there doing his thing, and we all knew he was there. There were times when he would open the cabinets in front of us, or there would be nobody at the microwave, and he would press it and turn it on, and we could hear him walking. And I saw him one day, and I'm like, I see you. If you're going to be here, why don't you do something? I was joking with it. And he would look like my son. So he was hiding in our home. Everybody would be like, oh, did you just see such and such pass by? And I'm like, yeah, I just saw him pass by. And he was always like half. Like part of his body, the front top part was materialized, and then he didn't have all his legs were a little bit invisible. And I asked him, I'm like, why are you showing up as my son? We all know, I found a picture in the game room of him, what he really looked like. He had dark hair, and my son had at the time had dyed his hair blonde. So he was walking around looking exactly like my son. So he could be under the radar, because you can look like anything in the spirit world. You can take on anybody, right, and look like what you want. And so I had this relationship, sort of. Not, it was the first time I ever kind of, sort of had a dialogue with a spirit that lived in a house for a while. We just left him alone. He left us alone. And one day I came home and caught him. I had just, anyways. So what happened is I had helped him when he was ready. I'd done a whole thing where we were going to help him go to the light, and I called in, the angels and all that. And so I thought he was gone. So then these other beings were living up there too, simultaneously in the same house. But anyway, so what happened is the dark one that you mentioned, well, that we were mentioning, he came back in, and he tried to pretend like he was Matthew as a boy, with the dark hair, and he showed me his face, but there was something very not right about him. And so I asked him, and then by the third time he transformed into what he really was and took off. Yeah. I forgot about that until you mentioned like a kid, and then that must have needed to get brought up for somebody to know that that's could be like you said.
And the importance of it is everyone is different. And so for you, saying it 3 times, brings the truth. That's your intention. That's the universe acknowledges that and responds accordingly. To me, I would only need it once and it would do, but nobody has a right or wrong way. So don't feel like you're going, oh, why am I doing 2 extra times if he only needs it once? It's
Okay.
everybody resonates and does their own and has their own system, and that's what works for you. Then that's what works for you. Don't ever sit there and go online and be like looking for answers and go, oh, this person did this, and so I'm going to do that. And it's not going to, it may or may not work because what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another.
That's a good point. And at the time though, I had just read it in a book, and I didn't even know about it before that. So it was kind of like a technique that I used to test it when it showed up. Because, kids, like you said, sometimes I thought maybe he had come back. It wasn't him. It was just those something wanting to come back into the house and trying to see if I would let it by pretending it was a kid. A
But
spirit of
here,
a kid.
yeah, but here's the important thing to I want to acknowledge for you is it wasn't the fact that you said it 3 times that, caused the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You said when you saw him, something felt off.
Yeah.
So you questioned it. So you were trusting yourself, reading the energy and saying, the energy is off. This is
Mm-hmm.
not who he says he is. So then you started going, how do I get it to reveal who he really is? So you knew it was not who he was portraying. So you trusted yourself and trusted the energies, which is an important thing to do. That's what I was saying is when a spirit walks up, how you feel and sense it is the truth of it. A malevolent spirit can never portray itself as a benevolent spirit and make you believe and feel benevolence from it. It doesn't know how.
Ah, yeah, that's a good
And
point.
so, in a benevolent spirit, would never want to make you feel scared or afraid. So, they're never going to act like a malevolent spirit. So, that's where I say, it's important to understand what's going on and be aware because you're picking up on it being a benevolent spirit triggered you to go and say, oh, I read this about keeping malevolence out. Let's try it. And it worked because you knew it was malevolent.
Mm.
So don't sit. I just don't want you to go, oh, the asking 3 times is what did it. You did it by the awareness.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good point too. Yeah, that's a good point. Now since then though, I don't really deal with spirits too much, which is funny because that's how we started this whole conversation. Is like, well, I started this way, and there was a time where I was interested in ghost hunters. I used to watch this show years and years ago, and then I got to a point where I don't even care about stuff like that anymore. I'm not interested in ghosts and stuff like that because I already went through all that. And so sometimes it just comes back around later on, like now, like recently I went through in the last few months, that whole thing where I saw that something and had what I felt like was an encroachment into my sacred space. And so I had to redo all of that again. I had to revisit that again. And, but, yeah, so I mean, you just never know. I feel like I'm going to be a forever student. I'm always learning
We
and
are.
curious. So,
We are forever students.
yeah.
And I would encourage you to, if you haven't, look at extending the protection to the whole property line. And because the reason I say the property line is because if you have neighbors on, like, say, all 4 sides of you, you can't do anything about their space. That's their space. You can only do something about your space. So you want to protect your space as much as possible. So the way I look at it is one plot corner to the other plot corner, create the square. That is your sanctuary. View it that way, and you put up as much and overkill protection over it. And because this is your safe place, this is where you're supposed to be safe from everything. So why would you, if this is your land, so to speak, why would you only want to protect the domicile and the house? You'd want to protect everything so you have the freedom to go outside and walk around. And by also doing that, by protecting the land on the four corners, if you have, like in your case with the rabbits, your rabbits are protected under that field because they're within the boundary.
Mm. That's a
And
good
so
point.
if you have a dog that likes to go running around outside, they're protected by the field because I would assume you have a fence around the perimeter so they're not running in other people's yards. So, in essence, by doing the four corners of the land, you're protecting everything within it.
Mm.
And if ever anything says sage doesn't work on me, you just have to sit there and go, and just put the intention, well, this isn't just sage, and burn it and let it, do its thing. But if you sit there and go, oh, you said sage doesn't work, so I'm not going to burn this sage, you've given power to him.
That's a good point. Yeah, it was like he laughed and they left though. They had to leave. They would leave, but they would always come back at that point.
Right,
This was before,
because
yeah,
yeah,
before they left
because
for
by
good.
you believing that the sage doesn't work,
Mm.
they had doorways back in so they could come
Ah,
back and forth,
I see.
and they would
That's
test to see, are you going to, defend the property, or are you going to
mm.
buy into the
Yeah.
fear, get afraid, and boom, they're in.
That makes a lot of sense. See, I didn't even put that together until just now. That's why yeah. I mean, I would still do it because I would see them leave and it clears the air and you can feel the difference energetically. But he was like, oh, that doesn't work, long term. And they would always come back. So maybe that's why, because what you just said, and I wasn't aware of that until just now.
Yeah. They
So
like
thank
to
you.
plant
Wow.
doubt. Yeah, they like to plant doubt because doubt creates a fear and a worry, and so it lowers the energy
Mm,
around. So if you put, like, think of it this way: you have a watered, you know, a river coming up, and you have a dam
mm,
that's made out of concrete, and you're like, hey, this concrete has not leaked, it hasn't broken, it's held the water back, say, for 100 years. And then somebody walks up and goes, oh, that concrete's 100 years old. Oh, I bet it's starting to crack on the other side and it's going to start to leak. And you go, oh my God, you might be right. And what starts happening? Water starts dripping
mm.
through and cracks start to form. And all of a suddenly, then another person comes and says, oh, you have leaks here, this is going to fail. And you're like, oh, no, no, it's not going to fail, but I got to fix those cracks. Well, because you're now saying because of the cracks it's going to fail, it fails.
Mm.
Now, was the concrete weak? No, but your belief that it was broke it.
Mm.
And so that's where you have to be mindful and not let doubts in. And if in the next, if I look at the same example and say, here's 100-year old concrete holding a river back, and someone says, oh, I bet it's cracked on the other side, and you go, well, even if it is, it's been holding for 100 years, and it's going to hold another 100 years. It's going to hold because you have put new belief in that it will hold.
Mm.
And so your intention and belief is more powerful than what is physically in front of us.
That's interesting. Yeah. haven't thought of it that way. Yeah, I I wanted to share a little bit about the devil card just because we're in this topic in my book here, and just to basically, I have to put my glasses on or I won't be able to see. So let's see here. Um, so what I did was, I don't know if you can see it, but I put a Mothman, like this story where they're in the woods
Right.
and fog, and I created this
Well,
creature.
here.
And there's
Here's the
a
card, so they can see the card here.
yeah, and so there's a boy looking at his parents, and what this stands for is the messenger from the underworld. And it's kind of interesting because their son is watching him from like a TV screen, and I put that in as kind of like a subtle. The TV screen kind of stands for society's programming as well, which is really, really big on fear. The media loves to sensationalize and hype up everything that's negative, right?
Right.
And so it's breaking free from the chains of our own making, basically. And I mean, that could be like toxic relationships, environment, unhealthy living situations. But it requires a willingness to look at our own inner demons and clear it out, clear it out. Kind of what we're talking about. Standing in sovereignty, I suppose, and readjusting our energetic field and putting up barriers around us, I guess. But a lot of times, basically, it stands for addictions too. The devil card is where people succumb to the lower world's desires. And when you think about the Mothman, he was sort of a messenger. I mean, he appeared at this ammunition World War II building site in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and then they had some kind of weird. You were talking about concrete collapsing, and then they had a bridge collapse, and some people died, and whether or not that was related, I think the Hollywood film kind of put that in there. I'm not sure that that was even related to the Mothman appearing, but he was definitely a messenger from the underworld. And so that's kind of what I have in here. And then I have like these 7 interesting facts in this area of West Virginia. And there was so West Virginia's cryptids, they go beyond the Mothman. For those who don't know, there was the Flatwood Monster in 1952. There were, and this is something that I wrote, and I put the where I got the information in the back of the book. But they said 7 Braxton County residents on Saturday reported seeing a 10-foot Frankenstein-like monster in the hills above Flatwoods, and so that happened too. So there's just something weird with woods, cryptids, which, by the way, like I said, I've never been afraid of that kind of stuff. It just so happens that recently I've had some events where I don't really want any of that in my field anymore. I'm done. I don't want to be dealing with malevolent. I can't say that I'm not going to always. I mean, I mean, is it possible where we don't have to have these experiences for learning once we get the lesson? Or, I mean, I don't know, but I do believe that there is, like you said, there's this something about light that it's going to attract the shadow and duality, the good and the dark. And so, I mean, I don't think I'm afraid of it. I just don't really want those kind of experiences. I'm kind of done. I'm like, well, haven't I had enough of that? Haven't I had
So,
enough?
so how it works is, so you stood in your power against it, and then you saw it come as a child, and it tried to come in, and you stood again and said no and kept it out. Well, what happens is you've learned the lesson the first time. Well, then the lesson gets learned through a parallel event. And so they use those to circumvent, because you can sit there and say, oh, I learned my lesson. I'm not going to allow this anymore. and I've got, all this protection up. And so they're like, okay, this frontal no longer works.
Mm.
What about this? And they'll create a scenario. And so it's like you look at an onion, and when you take one layer off of an onion, you have more layers to peel away until you finally get to the core center.
Mm.
Well, how it works, and I learned this through metaphysics, is once you learn a lesson, that lesson then has the opportunity to present itself sideways through other lessons. And so it's, I don't want to mislead you and say, yes, you'll eventually never
Not.
have to
That would be nice,
deal
huh?
with this. But what'll happen is as you do one layer and learn the lesson, and then it splinters out, and you learn both those lessons, it splinters out. It won't affect you the same way because each time you learn the lesson, you also are gaining more wisdom and awareness. So as they keep trying and keep going to do what they used to be able to do, you're going to keep seeing them and be like, oh, I know you. Not today.
Yeah.
And then they're off, again until, the next time. But you'll see that you start reacting differently. And that's the point of the lessons is your awareness grows, and that's the growth is you don't respond the same way. And so if he was to show up, say, tomorrow and go, I'm here, told you Sage didn't work, and you go, well, you're right, it didn't work today, but it worked, these days before, so I'm going to do it again because it kept you away for these many days. And he'll disappear. And he'll be like, man, she's learning. I got to come up with a new way. And try, a different way. And you're going to see it. And you're going to learn to trust yourself. And you're going to learn to use your intuition and your instincts. And that's where the light will start to get brighter and stronger and more powerful, is because your awareness is growing. So everything about you is growing. And they're going to eventually give up, in essence, because you're not going to play, and they're going to know you're not going to play, and they're not going to be able to get into your house, or your land. So they're going to be like, hey, we could do this for an eon, but I actually got better things to do because there's a kid down the street who's just like she was when she started at 15. Let's go, there. And they'll move on. Now, other entities, may come in the meantime. So the key is don't ever let your guard down because you're like, oh, they gave up and they're
Yeah,
gone.
you're right.
I
That's
don't feel them. So always keep your guard up, but don't. What I mean by that is keep your awareness up. Don't guard yourself to where you're like, no, nobody's coming into this property.
yeah.
It's like you got to let people in. You got to have social interaction. You just will let the right people in.
That's a good point. Yeah, I know. I just, it's a funny thing because I don't even really think about this stuff or talk to anybody about it. So I really appreciate that we're having this conversation, and I'm hoping that what we're talking about will help somebody understand how it works, because it's, I'm still learning. I'm learning how it works. It's changed. It looks different from when I was younger, when I didn't know anything. But then there's so much more, but
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely, after all of that happened, put a lot of barriers. I went out and did a whole bunch of stuff different times when it felt like I needed to. But just having this conversation, I realized, well, maybe there's other areas where I could improve on what I'm inviting into my space energetically. So maybe I'll be more conscientious of that now moving forward after doing this with you. And it's funny because I didn't really know what I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk mostly about my cards, but I really, for anybody who's interested in tarot and they want to learn more about 78 places around the world, it's fun. I have poetry, and then I have advice and 7 interesting facts. So it's like 269 pages. And, tarot is the thing I know. I got my first deck of cards in 2001. And it's just a way for me to check in with my higher self, get information. And if a person wants to, they can use it to ask questions like, is there a place that I would meet kindred souls in, and, travel there? And I turned to Ireland, which, by the way, I did meet some kindred souls in Ireland. And or they can say, did I have a past life? Is there a significant, and, pull cards on that. And also my passion now is the biodiversity of the earth. I wanted to bring out special places and teach people about it, because I didn't know a lot about this stuff either. I had no idea that there was a huge barrier reef near Honduras, the Koji tribe in Colombia, the shamans that moved up into the mountains. So I'm teaching about that. I found all these good stories that go with the card, like Ace of Wands is passion ignited. And I had discovered the Drukpa Kung Fu nuns of Nepal. It's the only gender equality Kung Fu nuns there are, because the person who taught them was trying to bring inequality to the feminine. And he brought it to disadvantaged girls and taught them self-defense. And so now the Kung Fu nuns are teaching girls self-defense, and they're very active. And, things like that. Like, I found like some amazing stories because I was guided. And then there's the Gypsies of Moldova, and Manly P. Hall said that the Gypsies were the first tarot readers. So I thought, wow, that's going to be a good story. Let me put that in. And I ended up matching it to the 7 of Cups, which is making a choice. And by the way, can I read the poem? For some reason, I want to read the one, the choices, the 7 of Cups, that has to do with the Gypsies of Moldova, which I had never heard of Moldova. And it just happened to come into my awareness the day that I was working on the card. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. So let me put my glasses on because I can't see. I cannot see without these. And let's see. It's 7 of Cups, which is making a choice. And let's see here. Where are you? Oh my God. And my 7 of Swords, you know how well, you may not know this, but I used to be very politically opinionated, and now I put it into my art. So I have lots of codes for the 7 of Swords, which is deception. I have the politician in the Eye of Sauron watching the surveillance and all that, and lots of codes in that one. But here we go. Where's the 7 of Cups? Okay, I think I found it. Here we go. So it's called A Gypsy's Wish. And as I was saying, Manly P. Hall brought that out, that they were the first. And they're also, when they call them black blood, that is a compliment. That means the purest black blood, black blood gypsies, because what would happen is they would only marry in their ethnic group, so they're highly psychic. But this one is, I hope I can read properly. I ended up coming down with a cold, so I have a really bad sore throat, and I am out of it. So if anyone's watching this, I just want you to know I'm normally better early in the day. I'm a morning person, and it happens to be like Eastern Standard Time. It's a little late for me. It's past my bedtime, but I think I'm holding on pretty good. So I'm going to read this. It says, she stands on the edge of a screen, a young Romani girl lost in a daydream. The Seven of Cups rise in the sky. She dreams of a home where, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me. She dreams of a home where she's free to roam, not bound to a life without a choice. Is there a better life beyond the cold where poverty loosens its hold? The cups are many and the choices are unclear. A palace, a treasure, or a love sincere. She reaches for justice, for peace, yet the world offers mirages, half truths, and lies. They call her gypsy with voices unkind, a label that chains her with a word to confine. She knows the magic that lives in her soul. No cage can contain the wisdom of gold. Her wish is simple. She wishes for a good life as she releases her wish and then prays for a world where she is free. A wish for a life without hunger or despair, where dignity's voice will listen and care. To be more than a shadow or someone's disdain, and to dance in the light, free from the pain. The Seven of Cups is a trickster's delight, but she chooses truth, although it hides from plain sight. A gypsy's wish under cups that gleam, to break the chains of someone else's dream. And so I thought that, that's a marginalized community. And so I put in quotes for every card theme. And I found one from Sean Baker. He's an American director. And he said that if more stories are told about marginalized communities, subcultures, and minorities, the less marginalized they will be. So I put in this whole global, it has places I had never heard of, Lord Howe Island, King of Cups. I put in Telluride. I put some, places like even Jerusalem, which this was before the war. Well, actually, I think it was, excuse me, I just hit my face. Like I said, I'm a little out of it, but hey, I'm trying to do the best I can today. I even put this one in, and I had to change it because I put it in and I thought, well, what if this offends someone? You know how we have to be politically correct. So I took out the
Right.
Twilight Zone out of the poem. But this one, he's looking at horizons for the Two of Wands, and I put a message in the bottle on the earth. So he's kind of looking at, normally the Two of Wands, they're planning and they've got the world in their hands and everything, and they're about to go on an adventure. And so that's kind of where he is. He's ready to leave the city of Jerusalem, and go broaden his horizons on the world stage. And and I love, I love different cultures. There's the Kogi. I don't know if it's Kogi or Koji. I think it's Kogi, but I might be wrong. And Japan, and just, I have a lot of interesting stories and people. And then I chose Monet. Monet's Garden was one for inspiration for the Page of Cups. Let's see. Shakespeare. Oh my gosh. Page of Swords is Shakespeare. And so I have a lot. So I don't know. I love to research. I love to read, and I love history. So I got to put all this, my interest in megalithic stories, the giants, all this stuff that I'm interested in, including, the cryptid stories and stuff like that. All of my life experiences and things I'm interested in, I put in there, and it's educational. I think once people actually know about it, they're gonna like it. They're gonna really enjoy it because I do. I really, depending on what I'm in the mood for. If I just want to read the poem, or just, I think it's gonna be. And also, I was gonna say that I was going to, for the first 15 people that purchase the tarot book and deck, I'll sign the book for them. So, and I'm choosing 15 based on the number 15, the devil card. I have to overcome the devil, right? But I don't know. And 6, 5 plus 1 is 6. That's my life path number, which is, I think, harmony, balance. things like that. And community, building community is one of those things that I was interested in doing with my company and business. And it's been over 10 years and I'm finally learning how to do that. When I started out, I didn't have a clue how to run a business. I just wanted to have fun. And so there's so much more to it than that if you're going to have a successful business. Everyone knows that. But when I started, I was more of the creative. And so I had to go kind of reverse it and put the foundation and all of that. And so now I'm relaunching my travel and retreat business to focus on sustainability, bringing people together in communities that are interested in permaculture, perhaps, or eco friendly travel. There are beautiful places that are more eco friendly than the. I mean, you can look it up there, and that's what I've done. So for Sardinia, that's an Isle of Giants. There's a lot of hidden history there. It's kind of interesting because I had read about where the locals had dug up giant skulls and bones. I want to say 12 feet it was either between 7 and 12 feet giants. And they had called in some authorities. They came and took those bones and they never saw them again. And it was hush hush. And so if for those of you who are interested in those kind of things, I have some of the hinting into this as well. Like I said, I got to put all of my interest into a creation and it's fun. And I think it's going to be enjoyable for those who get to read the book and play
No,
with the
I
cards.
think it's actually very brilliant because you call your deck around the world, and a lot of times, people say, "Oh, yeah, I've been around the world," and they go, "Well, where have you been?" To North America and Europe, and it's like that's not the world. The world is everywhere. So I really like how you took and gave a voice to the world in the tarot. And I was looking at some of the cards, like, Paris is in there. I saw Paris, and I seen other places and different cultures, and it's like everyone has a voice, it seems like, in the deck. And I think it's brilliant. And I also love how you took and added facts about what the images are about and the region and what it is, because you're right. Like, if you were to ask me something about New Zealand, I could maybe name 5 things. And it's only because I haven't been drawn to New Zealand recently. But, there's all these places all over the world that we have all these experiences and can share with, but nobody knows who to talk to about. And so it's almost like you're creating the icebreaker of, by reading the book, you can go somewhere and go, "Oh, do you know about this?" And they'll be like, "Oh, wow, you know that? Oh, let me tell you some more." And,
It's
and so I love how you did that.
Well, thank you, Michael. And it's funny that you say that because I have a friend who lives in Canada and she was on the West Coast and she had never even heard, which I hadn't either. Like I said, when I did this, I had no idea how much I was going to learn from this project because I haven't heard of a lot of these places myself. And she actually lives in Canada and never heard of the Great Bear Rainforest, which is the largest temperate rainforest, coastal rainforest in the world, and it's in British Columbia. And I never heard of it. Have you heard of the Great Bear Rainforest?
I have actually,
You
and
have? Okay,
I
well,
actually was in the rainforest in Alaska.
so yeah, okay.
And so I, stumbled on it. I didn't know about it. And we were on a short excursion just exploring the town. And
Mhm.
one of the locals said, "Oh, there's a rainforest up here." And we're like, "No, the rainforests are in the tropics. They're down south." And they go, "No, we have a rainforest." And sure enough, we found it and walked through it. And we were
Oh,
like,
you were there. So you've been
"Wow."
to Great Bear. Did you see a white bear? They have the spirit bears there. Did you get to view
We didn't
one?
see any bears there, but we were in the Alaska part. We
Oh,
didn't travel into the British Columbia part.
okay.
The closest I've been to that area would be Victoria Island and Vancouver.
Well, that's cool because yeah, a lot of see that's the thing is a lot of people don't know about these amazing magical places with all this rich nature and I didn't even realize it goes up into Alaska. So you just taught me something there that I didn't even know. But I just thought it was really interesting because I didn't know about Madagascar either, and that was interesting. My King of Swords is in Madagascar, and they don't have access to education the way a lot of the way we do, right?
It's a
So
large island east of
oh
Africa that's completely isolated.
yeah, they need books, they need teachers, and they just don't have. So what I put was a King of Swords, which we all know he's a smart, and so he's the king, and he is about education and pursuing reading and for his people. So that was kind of, I mean, obviously there's no king of Madagascar, but he's an archetype. And so I ended up placing him there just to teach about the island there, and how they have that cute little jumping creature that was in a cartoon, and how the
Lemur.
animals, yeah, the lemurs, they're so adorable and they're endangered. So I got to write about that and the interesting facts. And I also learned about the freshwater dolphin that's in Bangladesh, in between Myanmar and Bangladesh, and I never heard of it, the Irrawaddy dolphin. And I feel like a lot of people may not know in our world unless they travel to that part of the world, Bangladesh, Myanmar, that there are 300 as of 2024. I believe there was just like a little around 300 dolphins left in the wild river freshwater, and they're so beautiful and cute. Dolphins are so intelligent, and so I just wanted people to learn and bring, like you said, bring people together around the world, because and then there's the chocolate hills and the Boho province, the Philippines, and there's just magical places on our planet. And then two, diversity. I feel like people who are prejudiced though might not like my deck or might be triggered by archetypes. It just depends. Everyone's different, but I don't think my deck will be for everyone. And maybe not everybody wants to know everything or 7 interesting facts about certain places. But I think it's really fun for those who are inquisitive to learn and remember. Because with fun things, you remember. That's when we were kids. We play and so on. And
Right.
I thought that would be with cards. I feel like it's easy to learn things because you're not really studying it, you're just kind of playing with it, and so hopefully people will enjoy it. So I'm just so happy that you had me though to share with you, and I learned a lot. Actually, I had no idea I was going to talk so much about the spirit world, but I do believe that's something people need to know how it works, and the fact that you're talking about it, you helped me see a few things that I wasn't even aware of. So I appreciate that, Michael.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
And one last thing I'll leave with you with my metaphysical awareness and 47 years of being a student of it and still learning is you have to look at words and realize words are labels and symbolically what they could represent. And we talked a lot about the devil, and so when you look at the word devil, it has evil in it. Well, what's
Mm,
evil? Well, evil is the opposite of live. If
mm.
you reverse it, it's live. So if you're living, you don't have to fear the devil. But if you're not living, then you're falling into the low energies of the evil or
Mm.
malevolence, and who's in there is the devil. And the other thing with that is evil, you add the word D, you get devil. So if evil is the opposite of living, what's the devil? The opposite of lived.
Hmm.
So if you haven't lived, you're embodying that aspect.
Wow. I hadn't thought of that. I always, for me now, I just want to call it like the adversary because there is an adversary, right? But
Right.
lived, I never put that together. Devil in, I've never done that. That's cool how you change the words and, oh my gosh, that's wild. Huh.
It took me a long time. I didn't learn that. And, I grew up metaphysics by choice, and I didn't have the dogma of religion to
That's good.
contest with. And so I think it was like in my 30s when I realized and really looked at that, and somebody like pointed out to me, like in tarot, we say, the 10 of swords. Well, what is swords? Well, you move the S to the end and it becomes words. It's a
Mm.
communication. And I was like, oh, and that's when all of a sudden I started noticing words. And
Mm.
my favorite word is impossible. I love when people tell me, oh, that's impossible. And I'll go, you're right, I'm possible. When you look at it, it's
Ah,
I'm possible. And
wow.
and so it's like I started figuring these out, and people pointed some out to me as well, and I'm like, wow, I never thought about that. I like that. I'm going to embody that and incorporate it in. And so, yeah, that's why I say we're always learning, because there's always stuff to see that we haven't seen,
Mm.
even though it's
I
been in
love that.
front of us.
I love that. What you just on pause. Yeah, no, I just learned something new again. Thank you. The words, huh? Wow. Impossible. Yeah, I like that. I never put that together either, but I see it now that you mention it.
Yeah, and whenever somebody is lashing out at you, and they're like, "Man, you're impossible," you can turn it on them and say, "You're right. I am possible." You can see that they will be like stunned for a moment or a few seconds, because they're like, "Wait, I just insulted you, and you're not taking it that way. What's going on here?" And it'll throw them into a tizzy, and it's like, you're feeling positive and good, but they're in confusion because they're like, why didn't it work?
Ah, well, what do you say to someone who tells you you're too much? I've heard that from people several times in my life that I'm too much. What would I say for that?
I I've been told that too, and I just say, I'm sorry, I'm just me. That's
Okay,
all I can be, is just
too
me.
much.
And so, and I realize it's not for everyone. Is the full
Mm.
extent of it. Of what I say is, yeah, like I'll be like, well, I am, all I can be is me, and this is authentically me, and yeah, it's not for everyone, and
Mm.
sorry, if it's not for you. And that way, it's like I'm honoring them where they are. I'm not putting them down, and I'm honoring I am who I am, and I'm not going to change myself to be in that situation. So it's,
Mm.
to me, the most loving way to like end stuff is to be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not, you know, authentically where you're at. I have to be my authentic self, just like you have to be your authentic self.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I was just wondering if there was like a play on words. I don't know. I thought,
Oh, if
what do
there
you
is,
say?
I haven't come across it yet,
Yeah,
but
that's fine. No, that's fine. I love that though. I love what you were saying, as I had never done that before with the swords and words. And no, that's really interesting. I might start playing with it a little more now that I'm aware that you brought it to my awareness. So,
well, cool. And wow, we're actually an hour and 36 minutes in. Um,
wow.
do you want to let people know, since you offered, about the book and the deck, where they can find them?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So right now I do have two websites. I have the, I don't know how to do WordPress. I've taught myself how to do Wix, which is the Earth Goddess Rising website where I have the tours that's going to be announced. I'm preparing those now. So I should have those announced. Let's see, probably within the next month, October, have that up on my website. I'm a solo person right now. I don't have a way to hire help just yet. So I'm doing everything on my own, which I don't like. I would love to have a team, but I'm not there yet. So that's a little slow, but I'm going to have all the tours on the website probably in the next 6 weeks for sure for relaunching in 2026 just for the summer, because I am a mother and I have a child in school. So I really will only be doing the tours for the 3 months of the summer. And then my tarot deck, which is also really cool because we're going to be going to some of the sites that's in here, just a few sites that are in here. And you can buy that on my website, DevinaSt Claire.com or EarthGoddessRising.com, either one, and that comes directly from me. The book is available on Amazon. It's a little bit pricier there. It's better to get the whole set from me, but you can buy the book separate. It's not like you can't do that. But it would be, let's see, I think it's cheaper to buy the book through me than it is on Amazon. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that. But yeah, that's where you can get it if you're interested. And I think I need to get you the book though. Did I don't think I didn't get to send you the book because I just got 2 copies right now, and I have to order them in bulk and then mail it out.
Right, I'm learning that process too, being an author now.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did see that. What did I want to know? What did you write about? Do you have a moment real quick to tell me? Just
Um, so I wrote my paranormal journey from my first experience at 2 to my next experience, which I think came as a teenager or in my 20s. And so there's gaps in there because if I don't remember anything paranormal, I didn't make stuff up. So I was just like one experience to the next, to when joined teams and learned that you could be a paranormal investigator and really got into the paranormal. And so it's my journey of discovering the paranormal world and how it unfolded. And at the end of it, I even go as far as to how, like, this show came about and its origin story. And so all, the podcasts that I'm on, then the paranormal, are their origin stories in there. And so it's my journey and it's my experiences, and I kind of share what impact certain locations had on me, what experiences I had there, and then I give a little bit of input of, yeah, if you're going to do equipment, here's my suggestion about it from my experience. What you should buy, not buy, why you should buy, why you shouldn't buy, and just, just lessons that I've learned. And I do take a moment though, and I'm like, and state, we should be respectful of locations. And so if you're one of those people who are filming for YouTube and breaking into places and filming and
Uh,
saying, "Oh, look at this really cool place I got to check out." I just make a little mention to you the fact that you doing that makes it super hard for paranormal investigators to get into locations because the owners don't trust. And so it's better to get permission than to break in somewhere. So I make a little PSA public
yeah.
service announcement about please stop breaking into places.
Mm. I was when you were talking to me earlier. Sometimes when people are talking, like I'll start seeing them different. And I was just wondering, do you have like, are you familiar? Did you have like a Viking or Druid? Like I was seeing you like maybe like a Druid, and then all of a sudden I also saw something what looked resembled like you had a Viking look. Do you does that resonate, or is that something? Is that part of your genetic? I'm just curious because I don't know why I was seeing that earlier when we were talking.
So, funny story. The show Vikings that was on the History Channel, the main character when it started,
What?
that
Wait, you
that is
were?
the Vikings TV show. The main character when it first starts, that's doing the whole searching for the Sunstone and setting sail and doing all this, is actually one of my distant grandfathers.
No way. No
So
way. Okay, cool. Well, that confirms that one. Which
I
one
didn't
did
know it,
you
but as I was watching the show, I like came across the name and I was like, "Why is the name so familiar?" And then I heard it on TV and I looked it up and I was like, "Yeah, that's who the show's based on." So I was like, that's my ancestor." Okay. And the druid part, I have past life memory of being with Merlin, so that could
Mm.
be where that's coming from in connection to the land.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so awesome. Yeah, that's what I was seeing when we were talking earlier. And I was looking at you. You were changing in front of my eyes.
I do
But
that.
yay. Well, cool. Well, this was fun. I feel like
Yeah.
I should have had more planned, but I was having a hard time today because I came down with a bad cold and a sore throat, and all I wanted to do is lay in bed, and I was feeling really bad with chills. And so but I wanted to be here, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. I actually learned a lot. I'm going to be integrating this tonight, probably writing some things down. And so thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me, Michael. I appreciate you so much. This was
You're
fun.
welcome. Yes, and I appreciate you as well. And I just, before I cut to the outro, I just want to say my heart and my show to you. Thank you for your service to humanity.
Oh, thank
And on a side note, for this being your first podcast, you did awesome. And the information that unfolded, I always say, what unfolds is what's divinely meant to unfold. So don't feel like, oh, because we didn't get to this, don't feel disappointed. In other
you.
words, what was meant to happen happened, and so that's how I view all my episodes.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Going with the flow. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you, and hopefully we'll get you back on again.
Yes, I would love that. I've learned a lot, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, and do take care of yourself and do get to feeling better.
Oh, yeah.
And with that, I'm going to say good night to everyone. So good night.
Good night. Take care.